G'day guys, and welcome to another 100 Things Fireside, where we speak to an industry expert, professional or guru about a very hot topic area within the world of bucket lists. This week's Fireside is all about love. It's on everyone's list, whether we want to find love, fall in love, even marry someone. And we're very fortunate to be joined by Ozzie Osborne, a love and relationship coach, and also a very good friend of mine. And she's going to help us frame love, what it means, how to identify your ideal partner, how to pursue dating apps, dating styles, the different stages of relationships, and even how to deal with heartbreak, a very important thing. Thank you for being here. We hope you enjoy it, and good luck. Ozzie, how are you? Welcome to the 100 Things Fireside. Firstly, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
This is exciting because this is on everyone's list. Love is, this thing, it's so primal to all of us. What is it? Not everyone knows. Have you found it? Maybe not. And it lives on people's lists in so many different ways. Getting married, finding your soulmate, all those things. I guess a first question is, why is love so important fundamentally to people?
Well, for many reasons. One is the idea of feeling, the idea of people not feeling enough or not feeling lovable it's sort of like an ever quest. So people think that love is a thing that lives outside of us. It's something that we have to find, right? We pick up the binoculars and we'll look everywhere for love. Love, I think for a lot of people, makes us feel like we belong, that we're part of something. Right. And so we're constantly on this quest for this thing called love.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. So if that's love and that's suggestive of just us, wanting to be seen, belonging, a connection of sorts, what is the difference between that and then a romantic type of love, which of course is, anchored in relationships, etc.?
Yeah, and it's oftentimes intertwined, right? The idea of love and the idea of romantic love. Romantic love is just doing love with someone else, right. Having a partner to share that love with. It's the interchangeable energy of what we call love. I don't think love, if you were to ask me what love is, it's really hard to define. It's absolutely an energy, at least for me and how I see it. And the difference between the romantic love, again, is just that we're doing it with someone else. We are experiencing it. We're experiencing that energy. We're sharing that energy with another entity, with another human being. Okay.
I'm liking this. So, right. So on my list, for example, I don't have a love-based thing necessarily. Not to say that I don't want that in life. I think it's great. But as I said just before, everyone has it in some variation on their list, meaning that also a lot of people don't have it currently. What's the first step towards finding love? You mentioned the binoculars and looking outwards. Is that kind of what it is, or is it actually something very different?
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is get rid of this idea that you have to find it. First and foremost, it's nothing that you need to find. And the second step is look within. So love exists within us. So it's understanding your relationship with yourself. That's the number one pillar that I teach people, is how to have a relationship with yourself and to cultivate a feeling, an energy of love within yourself so that you can be open to receiving it. Most people are not open to receiving it, but they romanticize the idea of love as something they have to get, as something that somebody else has to do for them, and therefore it doesn't exist within them, and they give that power away to someone else.
That's amazing. Okay, because I would think you look externally to find it, but I actually heard someone today on social media, a guy I know, say something to the effect of, the idea of marriage, two people become one. It sounds lovely, but he said, and I can see you shaking your head, that's actually not what it is, right? You're two individuals, and is that an important piece to remember?
It's such an important piece because, again, like I said, we often do relationships enmeshed. So it's like this. Healthy relationships get to be very interdependent. Two individuals coming together to enhance each other's life, to grow each other's life, and to really share a vision with each other about where they want to go. Mm-hmm. The enmeshment is that codependency that we all have. We all have dependencies, right?
Yep.
The majority of us play with codependency often, right? We need someone to complete us. You complete me, right? As opposed to, I'm a whole being, and I love myself so much so that I fill my cup so much so that I can now bring that into a relationship and share it, rather than throw it up on you, project it on you, and expect you to now return it in the same way.
Right. Okay. This is so for most goals on most people's lists, you can, you can work proactively towards getting that. You want to run a marathon, get some shoes, step out the door, go for a short run, increase the length, and eventually do a marathon. So it seems as though, although you can't so this is a question. It was a statement. Maybe it should be a question. I was going to say you can't guarantee love. Is that true in itself? You can't guarantee that you'll find someone, I suppose.
Well, again, it depends on how you quantify love, right?
Yeah.
You can't guarantee that you're going to find the one, but you can guarantee that love does exist within you, should you choose to.
Yeah, and that's the proactive part that you can work on, that you speak about. Proactively finding love within, so you can then, okay.
And
You mentioned, oh, sorry.
It's more about not the finding, but the accessing it. So it's when you start to do the work and look within, it's available for you. So seeing it rather than looking for it. Because a lot of people look for that within themselves. They go to webinars, they go to seminars, they hire coaches, they do everything. They read all the books, Men Are for Mars, Women Are for Venus, whatever book suits you at the time, you're going to read it and you're going to try to find out what's wrong with you so that you can find that, that one.
Right.
As opposed to trusting that you have it within you and cultivating a practice of trusting yourself, trusting an outside source, something more powerful than you.
Okay. All right. So there's a surrender element to this, some kind of.
Oh.
It's great. So you mentioned a couple of times already, the one, right? And there's so many ways that people frame this, finding the one, or I hear twin flame, and, fate will bring people together. Is that the right way to be framing love or the pursuit of a relationship or the manifestation of this ideal partner? Are they truths or are they not?
I think they're truth if you make them your truth. I think for me, it's more about helping people understand, supporting people in understanding that the romanticizing part of love and the one is really setting yourself up to not to win, but quite the opposite. It's setting you up for disappointment because the expectation is so high. The one has to be a certain way. He has to look a certain way. He has to be a certain way. And then you sort of get yourself into a place of not actually seeing the one that's meant for you. There isn't just one. I believe that there are many soulmates that we come across in life. And it's just a matter of being open to them and understanding that every person, one of the things that I actually say that a lot of people pause on is this idea that relationships are really designed for growth. They're really there to teach us something, and they're really there to mirror for us what's going on, what we get to heal, and what's within us that we get to grow. So every single human soulmate, whatever you want to call them, that shows up for you is really there to teach you something. Yeah.
I hear you. I've got so many questions. I'm really fired up about this. So hang on. So then to go back to what you just said about there are more than just one person, because there's 8 billion people on the planet. Is it then a kind of, again, a fictitious fairy tale of a story to suggest that there is the one, you meet someone, they are the one and it lasts forever and happily ever after? Should people be seeing that going in? Is that a vision? Or is that, as you say, setting yourself up for a failure and instead looking at a relationship and going, well, it'll work in this way for now until I mean, you talk about sort of self-understanding and mindset potentially. How does someone, oh God, so many questions. Where do I start? I've just asked you 7 at once. I'm going to go for it again. Okay. Thank you for your patience here. So, okay. The fairy tale story of finding the one happily forever after. Is that a reality? Can that happen?
Absolutely, it can happen. You could find someone, of course you could find someone who matches you exactly,
right?
But it can't match you exactly if you haven't done the work, if you haven't cultivated this strong belief in your body and in your system that you're worthy of that love, right?
Okay. And so where does that journey start? Because you talk about self-understanding and this is probably this is the juice within this conversation. How do you get to this feeling of like self-understanding? Is it goal setting? Is it, therapist type, encounter? Like, where does someone start for that? Because we don't, all too often, right?
No. And it's hard to say where one should start, because I think everyone is on a different path in their journey. I would offer a start where you start with a question, which is, who am I? Who am I? What are my obstacles? What are some of the narratives, some of the stories that I tell myself over and over again on a daily basis? I think we did an exercise like that together.
We did a thing, and thank you, a few years ago, where I was curious about trying to, find love. Ongoing journey, of course. And yeah, you did. It was, I'd heard of it plenty before. What does your ideal partner look like, etc. But yeah, as you said, it comes back to trying to understand yourself more so than focusing externally. And I found that really helpful, by the way. I told you back then, but it was incredible for me.
Yeah, it's really about understanding that we all have a blueprint. We all come into the world having a blueprint. Some people believe that the blueprint is already designed for us before we even enter the world, because that blueprint which was decided maybe by your culture, maybe by your family, your lineage, gets passed down to you, right? Your blueprint is your programming. How are you running on a daily basis? Similar to a computer. Programs running the show, really. And once you start to kind of take that computer apart, take that programming apart, and really look at who you are as a human being up until now, who you've been, what are some of the patterns? I do a course called The Relationship Blueprint, which allows you to really look at who you are, where you come from, what are your narratives, what are your stories, what are some things that have held you, what are your limitations, right? Because a lot of the programming limits you and prevents you because you've created them as a form of what we call a safety mechanism.
Right.
Survival safety mechanism was put into place to support you in feeling safe in the world, right? We've all gone through some form of trauma, some bigger than others. Trauma is trauma, right? We all have some pain points that we either experience with our caregivers or was passed down to us. We're trying to carry on our parents' pain. And then we get to decide, what do we want to do with it? So once you unpack all that, once you really take a good look at all that, you realize what your blueprint has been. And when you realize that, right, there's a lot of power in understanding.
Wow. So that's a big journey. That's a long journey to understand all of that, of course.
It doesn't have to be, right? The discovery part is the first thing is an opening, right? I'm open to discovering who I am, right? That's with that question, who am I? Once you start there, things will start to open up for you. You'll start to really understand yourself. You'll start to understand how you work, what your patterns are in relationships, and why those patterns are there. They're there for
interesting,
right? And they're there because of how you view the world, how you learned what love is. You learned what love is differently than the way I learned love is.
Mm-hmm.
I safe. I learned that love isn't safe. Love was taken from me. I was abandoned, right? I was. So I look at love a little differently. So is I don't trust it, right? My programming was that I didn't trust it. It's not safe. I'm going to get hurt. I'm going to get abandoned. And when you come into a relationship with that programming, guess what? I'm going to attract someone who's going to mimic what my parents did to me. They'll leave me. They'll abandon me, right? Create that so that I can see that that's what I get to heal. Now, we don't know that. Now, this is going a little too deep probably for this conversation. But it all makes sense. And it doesn't have to take a long time, right?
Sure.
I do this in minutes with people. I literally will show you where you've been just with the right questions, who you are, where you've been, and where you want to go. And we get to start that journey of creating a whole new blueprint.
Okay. I love that. So you're not necessarily molded by your history or past. You have the opportunity to change all that as you have, and maybe not as many people as you would like have, but it's on the table should you choose it. And I guess fast forwarding even just a little, oh, sorry, I missed that.
I said, it's a choice. The power is in the fact is in the learning that it is your choice.
Okay. So let's say, and we fast forward slightly, and people have done this work and they understand themselves, and they've sort of set out who their ideal person is. What then? Because there are so many, we live in such an interesting place right now where there are so many ways to meet people. And, traditionally it's, the romantic idea is you bump into someone and, oh, you fall in love instantly, the love at first sight. But now there are apps and you can, of course, get introduced through mutual friends and all those bits and pieces. Someone looking to proactively now find someone, should you be open to everything? Is there a strategy needed if you're on, do dating apps work?
Yes, yes, and yes.
Okay, great. I like asking you 4 questions at once, by the way, it seems.
Say yes. My answer is always yes. Yes. So the next step is saying yes to it, right? So that's why I said yes. And it's saying yes. I'm available for calling in a partner, not the one, but a partner. Mm-hmm. The first step is saying yes. The second step is being clear about what it is that works for you, right? We select partners, again, based on where we're at in that moment in our lives. So it's important that we get clarity about what do we want to select and stick to it. We're very funny as human beings. We select people and then we dishonor our desires, right? Okay, I want my person to be successful. I'd like my person to be generous. I'd like my person to be loving. I'd like my person to be committed. I'd like my person to be consistent. And then comes along a guy or a woman, right? And there may be 2 of those things. So then what do? We then kind of say, well, yeah, but he's really nice. I'll give him a chance, right? With the hope that maybe someday. So we dishonor our desires all the time. So the next is really being clear about what you are looking for and practicing. So the third step is practicing.
Okay, so I love that. And I think I probably overstepped one important thing here. And you're saying taking the moment to be clear on what you want. Now, you took me through this process of identifying your ideal partner based out of certain categories. And again, for people watching, I think it would be so interesting just to even hear a snapshot of perhaps what those categories are, with the idea that by identifying the specific things, and I remember you telling me, be very specific. How tall is she? How, what does she do for work, etc. That person gets sort of called in. And funnily enough, when we did this years ago, and I can just, my experience was I did this exercise. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then bang, I met someone who pretty much ticked every box. Didn't work out in the end, but we're friends. But yeah, so can you speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, so the specificity, a lot of people will be like, yeah, you don't need to be specific, just kind of put it out there. The specificity is really about starting to practice within yourself this idea that it's possible. So it's really learning how, in order to visualize and bring a vision to mind, knowing what that person looks like and not being attached to having that exact thing. For me, it's also adding to that is, so it's yes, you visualize what that person looks like, what that person does. We did a what's a day in a life of Sebastian, yeah. Right? You really take yourself through what it feels like to be in that relationship, and I think that's even more important than any other attributes that you're looking for, is knowing that what you want to experience in your body in that relationship. Do you want to experience joy? Do you want to experience laughter? Do you want to experience elation? Do you want to experience freedom? What's important to you?
Are you asking me?
It's a rhetorical, but you're welcome to.
No, thank goodness. We'll keep it as a rhetorical. So that's how you can get clear. You can be specific. And I also hear you saying something along the lines of, don't just settle. If they don't tick all the things that you've deemed important, that's not the person for you. So maintain that clarity and action it.
Yeah. And the reason why you don't want to settle is, and we often do, is because you're settling and you're sort of like making an agreement with someone that's not compatible with you. That's called manipulation.
What's it called?
Manipulation. I'm having a tongue twister here.
Okay. Manipulation. Got it.
Manipulation. Why can't I say that word? But yeah. So
okay.
we manipulate our, the idea that we have of someone that just doesn't quite fit it. And then we get resentful and angry that they don't match our ideal, right? We put people up on a pedestal, right? And we do that in our minds. rather than really feel who they truly are, right? Someone that shows up that's not aligned with what you're really desiring fully, why are we wasting our time?
Right. And so then comes into the equation, as you say that, because those are sometimes hard conversations to have. You know, we all have friends and ourselves. We've been in positions where you know a truth, i.e. this isn't the one for you or this isn't working. But even just to have that conversation is quite tricky. But if it's so important to actually finding the one eventually, we have to learn how to have this honest back and forth communication. Now, I'm sort of guessing. I sort of sound like I know what I'm talking about, and I don't. But you know, you hear this quite a lot. Is honesty, is authenticity, is communication, are these things crucial at every step, from when you're doing the self-evaluation through to identifying a partner to pursuing and communicate? Are those things just important the whole way through?
If it's important to you, then it's important. Some people have different priorities. Some people desire different attributes that are, you know, for me, it's communication, honesty, and growth. Those are 3 core values that I stick by. If someone does not meet those 3 things, then they're not compatible with me. Then I'm just trying to make them fit into that program.
Okay.
Again, it goes back to really knowing yourself, knowing who you are, knowing what your core values are, what's important to you, and not settling, not dishonoring who you are and what you get to have, right? Compatibility in partnership is so important. Oftentimes, partnership does not begin with compatibility. It begins with attraction, right? Like, oh, we might have some things in common, and maybe they could fit in. Maybe they'll work for now.
Sure. Well, I want to talk about that first part. So let's just say you've gone out on an online date, or a friend set you up and all that stuff. And then we always hear about this period called the honeymoon period. What is that? Is that a thing? Have we made this up? Because, you know, relationships are exciting at the beginning. Is that what we're talking about when it comes to a honeymoon period?
I believe there's definitely a honeymoon period, the first 3 months of a relationship. It's where we really want to impress someone. We show up really to impress. We show our best selves. We wear the best outfits. We do the best things, right? And we go in full steam. And then there's a lot of fun. There's a lot of, you know, joy and happiness and excitement, and it's new and it's fresh. And then we settle in. And we get to the phase where we're settling in and we're like, oh wait, that thing that person does is a little annoying. Okay, that tick that he has, yeah, no, right? And then we start to nitpick.
Right. So how do you avoid that, you know, this escalation of feelings and the excitement, the euphoria of a new unknown love, and then you start to nitpick? Does it go back? Because we always try and be our superhero version of ourselves in that 3-month period, as you say. And then of course it's going to go down. So do you just try and be normal? Like, is that a strategy? Just be as normal as possible in the first 3 months and just so it's clearer?
I'd like for you to explain to me what normal is.
Well, you know, like you say, you're wearing your best clothes and you're rattling off your best jokes and you're buying the finest champagne when in fact you don't like champagne. Do you just be normal from the beginning? That's kind of what I mean.
I think it's, again, when you cultivate a sense of confidence going into a relationship, you're not working to get to an outcome, right? So right. It's more, there's nothing wrong with a honeymoon phase. It's natural, it's normal, it's part of how we get to know each other. But I think it's important to, as you're getting to know someone in those three months, is access vulnerability. Show the parts of you that aren't necessarily, you know, the perfect part of you, right? The flaws. Talk about them. Talk about things that scare you. Talk about things that you fear. Ask the right question. Find out if that again, the first here's the thing. What I notice in relationships and people is people jump in because they already want to be 3 months ahead. Mm-hmm. Right? They already want to be in that settled period because it gets to that settled period that's very comfortable. And once you get comfortable, it's like, okay, now I can breathe. Things are okay. Everything is fine. I have the guy. I have the girl. It's all good. I don't have to work as hard anymore.
Right. Well, and that kind of brings up the idea of like the chase. You know, typically, like traditionally, I think guys like the chase more than girls, although I'm not sure that's true. is the chase just, does everyone have that? Does everyone get excited by that part? Is it intrinsic? Again, I'm going to ask you 7 questions. You can pick which one to answer. And then at some point when this relationship gets to a deeper level, is it still there and you just have to manage it differently? Or does the chase go, or is it a decision? I'm not chasing anymore.
Well, I think it's been known that men love the chase, right? You love the challenge, right? If things are too easy, then you won't have to work hard for them. So I think there is a secret sauce in the chase. I don't think it's a horrible thing. I think it's kind of fun to play. For me, it's really about, as long as it's done in a way that's authentic, right? That's the other thing about relationships that are really important, especially the first part, is really, really showing your authentic self, right? So if you're showing your authentic self and you are, first of all, if someone is pursuing you, right? Mostly the role of the masculine, right? The masculine is pursuing the feminine. There's something fun in that. So you could see it as a fun little game, or you could then stop the chase, right? And then you could start to back away. And then I mean, it creates so many different dynamics. I don't think there's anything wrong with the chase. And I don't think it just really depends on what your intention is with that chase.
Sure. Okay. And you mentioned typically as guys, but for the females watching who are, they're going through this self-understanding process, or maybe they're at this proactive place, it's completely fine for a girl to chase, right? I mean, traditionally, okay, you go.
Yeah, no, that's such a great point. I will always teach the feminine to invite, not to chase.
Okay.
This is the masculine quality. And an invitation is the woman's quality. So if the feminine, and when I'm saying feminine, I'm talking about energy, right? We have both the feminine and the masculine. In order for a relationship and polarity attraction to occur, you must have a feminine core and a masculine core, right? Generally, men tend to be at the core masculine, and women tend to be feminine at the core. So it's perfectly okay for you to invite a man to join you for drinks, right? As opposed to chasing to go for a drink with you.
Okay. I've always had
repelling.
Say that again. You cut out for a second.
So when the feminine chases the man, it tends to be repelling to the masculine.
Oh, okay. Sure. It's interesting. It's just obviously we're talking about a relationship between 2 different people. Of course, there's going to be push and pull. I mean, it's just okay. So this is interesting. So you've got the honeymoon period. You're saying it's 3 months. It doesn't have to be, I'm assuming it's not a time thing, rather a feelings thing, but maybe on average it's 3 months.
The average is 3 months. The average is about 3 months. And then the 3 months to 6 months is usually like that. You're getting a little bit more comfortable and you're getting a little more settled in. And then comes the stagnant part, where now you're like, really, you're not trying anymore ordinarily. And you're sort of like kicking back. You say things you wouldn't have said in the first phase. You do things you wouldn't ordinarily do in the first phase because you're not there to impress anymore. Todd,
who helps with the marshalling of 100 things, he often talks about the farting in bed moment. And I feel like that is potentially the stagnant period.
The farting, yeah. Yeah, I like to get that out of the way the first date. No, I'm just kidding. I was on the phone with a guy, and if he hears this, he might kill me, but that's okay. I don't care. I was on the phone with him. We were on Zoom or we were on FaceTime, and we were talking, and there's someone that was potentially interested in going on a date with me. And he put the phone down and said, "Give me a minute." And then went to the bathroom. I guess had the door open, but all of a sudden I heard him peeing, and I'm like, "This is great. This is awesome." And so he comes back and I go, did you wipe? Did you wash your hands? And he's like, "You heard that?" I'm like, "Yep, heard it all." So we got it out of the way.
Was his name Todd?
No.
Okay, no worries. All right, so I like that. So at the beginning, and actually in all seriousness, Todd did tell me this. I think I made up the other stuff. he told me that as you escalate through or progress through these stages, the honeymoon to the stagnant to what does come next, by the way, but at some point it's passion at the beginning and then it's replaced by compassion. And I guess the question is there truth to that? And when we talk about a relationship, it could be a 60-year relationship, not that I know too many people who have done that. There are a couple, but how do you best prep? Is it too far to think that far forward? Is it too much? Or should we, as we do this self-reflection and we try and manifest our partner, should be thinking about, what does this look like in 50 years?
Yeah. So I think similar to how you look at a business, and I hate to make it so strategy-like or so business-like, right? Because it's not really, but you kind of have to look at it like a business, right? In your business, you create systems and strategies that sustain the business. And every so often you'll go back and you will evaluate your business and you kind of look at the numbers and you look at the data and you see what works, what doesn't work, what you have to change, what you get to grow. I do this with couples all the time. So I talk about a quarterly, 4 times a year, you go through a quarterly assessment and you look at your relationship and you look at the systems that you instilled with each other to bring in passion, to sustain the passion so that it doesn't go away. Compassion is great from the beginning to end. I actually haven't heard that before. I think it's kind of cool that I've never heard the passion to compassion, but I love it. However, I also believe that passion gets to stay in the relationship throughout. And in order to do that and not get into the stagnant stage and stay there for too long, I really believe in creating systems that work for you and your partner. So again, it requires 2 partners that are interdependent, that know themselves enough, that have self-awareness to know that what's working for them and what's not working for them, and then accessing a way to communicate their needs, communicate boundaries, communicate their feelings and thoughts in a safe place. And in order to do that, again, you have to create systems and structures in place that can hold that relationship.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I see. And that takes communication. I mean, that's a lot of stuff in there.
So a lot of people think, oh, that's a lot of work. Oh my God. Yes. Relationships take a lot of work, right? Even when they do my programs and they go through, a lot of the stuff, because oftentimes I'll simulate relationships with them as a partner. I call myself a partner to them. And I require a lot of presence with them, right? I show up present and I bring in 100% and I expect them to do the same, because relationships does require presence. Now, presence doesn't mean that you have to be present with that person 24 hours a day. I want to be very clear that part of being interdependent is also knowing it's safe to ask for space apart.
Sure. Yeah. That was always a tricky one for me, actually. The space apart. Yeah. I mean, there's so many, oh my gosh, there's so many things here. Okay. Right. I'm going to watch this back. I'm sure I'm going to find love. I want to ask you about something that you told me a while ago, and it was the 5 love languages. And I just found it I'd never heard of it before. And I found it really interesting. And again, I ask you, for those people watching who may not have heard this, or those people listening who may not have heard of these 5 love languages. And can you maybe take us through, like, I mean, we can try and battle through and remember which they are, but also why it's important. I mean, I can't remember if that was a fundamental part of what you thought to be important to be able to get a partner, or whether it's just like as an aside, look at these 5 things. Is it worth talking about?
Absolutely. I think it's something fun to look at, to see, because I think that the 5, listen, we hit part of the 5 love languages at some point in our relationships, right? Sometimes your stronger language takes over in one part of your relationship, and then years later you've kind of taken over something different. We can absolutely cover it. I think it's important to look at, because it's important for you to know how you love and how you expect to be loved, right?
Sure. And from my memory, and I'm going to forget these, I think there was the 5 love languages in no particular order: acts of service, quality time, gifts.
Yep.
What else was there?
Affirmation.
Words of affirmation. Oh, yeah, yeah. That was on mine, actually. I felt like that was like an egoic thing. I need to be told stuff. And there's a fifth one. What's that one? Oh, physical touch.
I like playing charades with you.
Yeah. So, and so the idea was, again, for people who've never heard of this, the idea was you try and prioritize them and pay particular attention to maybe your first two or three and try and find a match in your potential partner so that there's a match and you both like physical touch. Is that right?
Not exactly.
Good.
So I think it's important for each person, each partner to understand what their love language, because then they know. So like, for example, for me, words of affirmation is important. I don't care how egoic it is. Like, it's important for me to hear, right? Quality time and words of affirmation and then physical touch are my three top love languages. So if I have a partner that is really strong in acts of service, really strong in other ways, they may not be compatible with me, but they might be open to providing that for me. Again, it depends on the partner. So I don't think it necessarily means that you then have to go and find that person that matches it. It just means that you find a partner that's open to providing that for you. And through communication, you could communicate to them. And this is I actually have couples do this together because I think it's a really fun little activity for you to discover together, to see, oh, I didn't realize that I really love it when you throw out the trash. That really turns me on, right? I don't know. People come up with some strange stuff.
That's great. It's great. And so the whole idea, the premise of this 5 love languages and everything else we've spoken about is the idea that you progress forward as easily as possible. But of course, in every relationship, some more so than others, there's always going to be conflict to some degree, an argument, a disagreement. And just an interesting thing I remember you talking about was whether I always thought an argument is just an indicator that this is not good. But that's not actually the truth of it, is it? Maybe.
It's actually extremely healthy for a relationship. Arguments allow you to express yourself from a place of truth. Arguments allow you to let your partner know that there's nothing wrong with them, but something that they did activated something in you and you're feeling a certain way.
Sure. And so can people prepare themselves to better process a conflict of some sort?
Depends on the conflict. If it's something that came up and you weren't able to react to it or respond to it at the right moment, you can prepare how you want to bring it to your partner. Most of the time, if we're being realistic, when someone pushes on a button to us, what do? Right? We react, and we react how we normally react when someone hurts us. Some people, I personally, when someone pushes my button, I shut down. So everyone has their own ways of dealing with conflict. I shut down because I think there's something wrong with me. I did something bad. So shame comes up for me, right? Uh-huh. So what works for me is taking time away from the situation and then really breaking it down for myself and understanding what came up for me. And then bringing it to my partner. And the way that I bring it up to is what I call a nonviolent way of communication. If you're familiar with the Gottman Institute, they talk a lot about that. And also Harville Hendricks and his wife wrote a really great way, the Imago dialogue. So it really allows you to express how you feel to your partner from a place of, you're not creating conflict with them. Right? You're just letting them know, hey, I noticed when you did that, I made up a story about that you didn't love me. And that made me feel really scared. And it may or may not be true, but that's what came up for me. And it's really important for me to get clarity from you on what you meant by that.
Right. And again, like for everyone listening, I mean, it just, again, boils back down to being vulnerable and learning to communicate, even though it flies in the face of comfort. Because they're awkward conversations. Well, they're probably not if you have them, but it's being able to lean into that, right?
Right. And that's why when I mentioned earlier, this is why systems are so important. If you set a system that allows you to have the safety to have those kinds of conversations with each other, then they're not as uncomfortable because they become part of your system. It becomes an understanding that, first of all, it's okay that we're fighting. Right? It doesn't mean that it's over. It doesn't mean that this is not a good partner for me. It just means that something came up and you get to look at it. It's an opportunity for you to grow. And in fact, when you argue right as partners, you actually grow much closer, emotionally connected like nothing else. Most fights are not done right. They're done with a lot of projection and a lot of hurt.
Right. Okay. That's powerful. Fights done right. I like that as a slogan.
Right.
So off the back of that, I guess, you think about love, making love, being in love, falling in love. There's also another side to it, which is heartbreak, because it doesn't always work out. And what I'm understanding is that it's a long process. What's your advice to people on, I guess, heartbreak?
Yeah. So having the courage to say yes to love is also having the courage to go through heartbreak. And it's something that's not it's pretty profound to be courageous in the face of that pain. We all know what heartbreak feels like. It's gut-wrenching. It sucks, right? It sucks. And people will do anything to avoid it. So when you're saying yes to love, no matter what, you're also saying yes to heartbreak. So knowing that is a huge step into finding someone that will match you. You've got to break a few eggs to make an omelet, is what I heard. So maybe that's what heartbreak is, a broken egg. What do you want in your omelet? So I've got a couple more questions, and I could talk to you for hours about this. It is fascinating. So my first question is this: for those people at the very beginning of this journey who have on their list, find love, marry someone, find my twin flame, or whatever you have on your list, and they're proactively seeking it, because I like talking about action. Do you have any tips about the online dating world or the dating world in general, just as an approach? Because that seems to be an important part, approaching this and putting yourself out there. Yeah. So it's just, first couple things. One, once you have clarity about what it is that you're seeking, what kind of relationship that you're seeking. Two is, what is your partner? What kind of partner are you open to? What partner will be compatible with you? And once you have that, you then can write and again, a lot of people have such bad experiences with online dating that they decide for themselves that, oh God, nobody good exists online dating, right? People ghost me on online dating, whatever stories people have on online dating. So the first thing is ask yourself, how do I feel about online dating? Because if you're not into it, don't do it. Too many people are doing it just half-assed, right? Like, commit to it, right? Commit to it 100% and know that it may work or it may not work. It doesn't mean anything. It's just another mechanism for you to be introduced to someone that otherwise you might not have met. Then the third thing is create a profile that speaks to your audience, meaning that speaks to that person, that partner that you desire. Post pictures that will attract that person of things that you're doing, right? Yeah. About what pictures you're putting up there. Obviously, you don't want to do half naked pictures and then, with a dirty mirror, and then in the back you have a really unmade bed that's like really gross and God knows what's in there. People expand the picture and look to see what's on the bed. Have you seen my dating profile? It's embarrassing, isn't it? I'm joking. Now, okay, I've got it. So, okay, that's online dating. It just made me think of a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine called Helix. He's a great guy. Maybe you know him, LA based. He's after the one. No doubt about it. And he deserves the one. He put out a thing on social media, which basically, it was a video saying, hey friends, I'm after the one. This is what I'm after. This is who I am. Super vulnerable, really well said. Is that something we can do? Is that something we should do? Okay, so I think it's an absolutely fun idea, and I think it absolutely can work 100%. It doesn't matter what mechanism you use. It doesn't matter if you go to the grocery store and you smile. Now you can't really smile because you have a mask on, but it doesn't matter what mechanism you use. If your intention is on being open to finding, the one, as most people call it, or calling in a partner, then it doesn't matter where you go. I think it's a fantastic idea. I was going to actually say as one of the mechanisms, text all your friends. And I did that. I texted all my friends that I knew, and I said, guys, here's where I'm at. I'm open to having this kind of relationship, and here are the qualities that really light me up. Do you know of anyone? It had my hairdresser asking all her clients if they know someone, and it's been like this mission thing. They're on a mission to find someone for me that would be compatible for me.
I love that. And so what was that?
I was very clear about what it is that works for me.
Yeah. Well, I love that also that, you say it doesn't matter whatever the mechanism is. It's just about, if it's organic in a shopping grocery store, whether it's online. I think that's great. And my last question is this, and I guess, well, it's quite simply this. You hear this all the time from people who are in relationships, usually on Instagram, and it's a photo of them kissing. And it's like, I married my best friend. I found my best friend. Is that what we're looking for? A best friend to marry?
I would imagine, again, it's this romanticized thing that we keep seeing. I married my best friend. You absolutely want to be friends with the person that you marry, right? Like, it's like, it goes without saying, like, why would you marry someone who isn't a best friend to you?
Right. No, I hear you, and I get the sense from what we're talking about that there are a lot of things that we've been told, and some of it's right, and some of it's actually probably quite inhibitive to finding someone. But the very clear thing to me is finding love, and whatever that looks like for you on your list, starts with yourself.
Yeah, yeah, because you are in control of that. As much as we give the control to someone else and to somewhere else, you're in control of that, right? Like, even if you put out there and you put it on Facebook and you say, hey guys, here's what I'm looking for. I'm single and I'm looking for this, this, and this, and this. Like, yeah.
I love it. Ozzie, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. I found that incredibly insightful. Yeah, I just want to say thank you for helping me as well in the past. That was lovely of you too.
Love it. This is fun for me. I really appreciate you asking me to do this, and I'll talk relationship any day.
All right. Well, thanks, and we'll talk soon. Okay.
Yeah.